also picked this for the summit, and Indiana, of course, has shown that they're very friendly to this idea. The governor thinks his goal is to, and he was there on the stage as well, his goal is to get an SMR in place within 8 years. So again, the purpose is to be able to provide electricity to the data centers that they want to build. It is also designed to reduce the cost that everyone is concerned about. You have Ohio residents, you have Missouri residents that have already complained about how their electrical costs have skyrocketed. You've seen a couple data centers here in Indiana get voted down. You've seen people show up at county commission, commissioner meetings and council meetings and say that they're not interested in it. So they're still looking for places for these data centers. Now, will these data centers employ a lot of people during the construction of them? Yes, they will. And that's why they're also concerned about the number of plumbers, the number of electricians we have, the pipe fitters, all of that. They need those for the construction. Once the construction of these data centers are done, I don't know. But the data center itself, from what I've understood, would not require a lot of manpower. You would have some experts that would be working on it, but for the most part, if you take a look at what a data center is, it's rows and rows and rows and rows of what appears to be computer servers that are just processing information. And all of this is gearing towards artificial intelligence. So that's what the big race is for. It's being pushed by big tech. It's being supported by federal and state government, this state government. And one thing that you have to consider about any initiative like this is if it's a federal initiative and you have a change in the future of that leadership or that party, then you may have a change of priorities. You may already see that there's been some changes in the construction of the battery factories. Has anybody seen that in the news? Where there are factories that have been being under construction. In fact, I think we have them in the state that were being constructed to build batteries for electric vehicles. And that was an initiative from the past administration. And when that initiative changed, and that was no longer a priority and funding has been redirected or pulled, then construction on that has pretty much stopped. They're calling it a halt to redirect. Some funding came in, but it's not, doesn't have the same emphasis or priority as it did with the past administration. And so you could have a similar situation with this, because if you have a change in federal leadership at the next election or the election after that, then they might not share those same initiatives. They might not be willing to advocate and support big tech, as this one has shown he is willing to do. So that might change. So I do know, and I may have said this, I might be repeating myself, Governor Braun said that he expects it to be online in 8 years. Because again, the technology is not there yet. But they made it very clear their intention of this was to bring the minds of the stakeholders or the big players together to kickstart the conversation. So that was the first one. They plan to hold more summits like this in the future. You did have international participants there that were there to learn as well, because you have other countries that are interested in these small modular reactors. And Purdue tends to be a place that has some experience with this, along with others, but for our state. Anybody have any questions for me? I'm trying to think if I've covered it all.
Consumption of water.
It depends on the technology in the system. Some are being looked at to cool it with water. Others are looking at being able to have a self-contained loop that would cool and utilize, even with the fuel, even with the cooling system, where they wouldn't be pulling fresh water and putting it out. Again, I still think we're in the early stages of the technology exploration, but with as much support as what they have, they're going to move it forward. They're going to move it forward because they've got the funding and the support. Some of the private funding would become from, like I said, the international banks, also investors who, if they were built in the state and you had consumers using the energy from the SMRs, they would still be stakeholders in, you know, our energy. It's not like Public Service Indiana that most of us grew up with that was, I believe, ran completely by the government and owned by the government. I could be wrong on that, but that's the impression I had from PSI. One other thing I was going to point out, NewScale, the 8 years, the other thing I was going to point out is I had asked our director of our director of energy for the state, and that is John Ford. I had asked him, what are you looking at down the road when you're eyeing the areas for the SMRs? And by asking him that question, I'm not encouraging or discouraging this community to look at this. I'm just asking. And he said, first of all, there would have to be industrial parks that are specific to this to be created. And I said, what would the criteria be? And he said, that's not been determined yet. And he said, there are not even laws in place right now from the state that would help cultivate this. So again, this was the first summit that's there to bring people together and kick around ideas. 8-year goal, whether that they meet that or they exceed that 8-year goal or they actually make a 5-year mark, I don't know. But that's basically what he said, is the criteria hasn't been established, the laws are not in place. I think they want to see where this is going to go. So they're getting the conversation started. So, anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah. So like how big of an area are they going to be?
For the small modular reactors, they're anywhere from 10 to 30 acres, they're saying, but then that doesn't account for the size of the data centers. And if you get onto the news and you start looking, Virginia right now, I mean, you've got states that are dealing already or have experience with the data centers. And so some people are pleased with them and some people aren't, because the noise, the water consumption too, the electrical consumption, and the cost of the electricity that's been passed on to taxpayers. And what I saw in this state, a law was passed last legislative session. I hope my memory is serving me correctly. And that was any data center would have to pay for 80% of its electricity. On the flip side of that is taxpayers will pay for 20% of a data center's electricity needs. So if or when these data centers move into the areas, the state of Indiana, other counties, whatnot, right now they don't have a way that I'm aware of to pay for that or reduce the costs of that 20%. And they do consume a lot of electricity because you've got bank after bank after bank, range or unit after, I mean, you're talking about miles of corridors of servers buzzing, consuming electricity. And I know you're like me, you're concerned about leaving the outside lights out, on overnight. You get up out of bed to go turn them off because you don't want your electricity bill up. But in this case, it appears Indiana has said, you guys are going to pay for 80%, but it also means the consumers, the taxpayers, somebody there, either through your personal electricity bill or through taxes, will compensate that other 20%. So there's a lot. I'm glad I attended this. It was, like I said, high quality presentations. They had heavy hitters. They had very important people there making presentations. I brought some flyers if anybody wants to look at them. They're following up with an executive summary report that when they do email that to me, I'm happy to share it with you guys to see what I learned. And again, by going, I went to satisfy my own curiosity. I am not advocating for something like this. I'm not discouraging. I'm just there to learn as a student. And then I decided to bring this to you guys just to see, just to share with you what I learned and what the initiative is and what this might mean in the future for Indiana.
Well, we need to be informed, I think, as a commission. So thanks for doing that, Amy.
Yeah.
You're
Thank you.
No, you're
Yeah.
welcome. So.
Did you get a free lunch or anything?
I did, and except it was tiered, so whatever dot that went onto your name tag was whether you decide where you ate, who you ate with, and what you ate. But I'll just say this: I was very pleased with the lunch. I thought it was very nice that they included it, and it was a free for all for the tables. And the 3 people who joined us at the table all were speaking Russian.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That'd be interesting.
Depends on how important you are, where you use that.
Yeah.
So it was interactive.
Sandwich.
I did not get a brown bag with a bologna sandwich and an apple. I did not get that. So it was good food. Purdue is a beautiful place. I don't think I've ever recalled going up to Purdue before. And it's just a very, very nice campus, very nice, the students were all nice. And everybody was very friendly, easy to get in and out, not a bad drive. So my husband went with me. We enjoyed the day. I guess we're geeks. So thank you for letting me share that
I
before.
appreciate you doing that, and as an excellent report.
Yeah, very good.
Briefly.
And I'm sure there's a lot I left out, but I'm telling you, it was just chock full of information. They did get into the weeds on the scientific portions of them, and you had every board member and employee of the new company that had just declared their headquarters there, and that was chock full of nuclear scientists. Like I said, the panel discussions on stage were awesome. I can't, no matter how much information I put into this report, I can't properly represent the quality, the information that was presented. So it's a lot to think about. So
Yeah. I'm sure they had been working on this quite a while before they even come up with this summit to make a presentation.
at least since the current administration on state and federal, because this is an opposite direction of the last administration as far as federal administration. So instead of the electric cars and solar and turbines and so forth, this is just going in a completely different direction. So.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
You just mentioned the word solar, and I knew this would come up. Sullivan County is going to do like 10,000 acres of solar panels
Oh, they are?
Yes.
on farm ground.
They are.
They're not too happy about that. So
I thought they denied that.
evidently not. There's like 3 different solar companies that's going to be involved with that. And I don't think I'd step it out of line. I think Clay County's pretty well put that, hey, solar panels would be great out there, the old strip mines,
Yeah, you don't know, I mean, yeah.
not farm ground.
Mm-hmm.
Unless that changes, I don't know. But
Personally, I'm always the one who, my thinking is I like to have my toolbox with lots of different tools in it. And I think that there's room for solar, for turbines, for coal, for gas coal, for everything. I think that the more you diversify your sources of energy, the more likely you are to withstand some type of a disruption of one of the channels, like what they had mentioned about Russia invading Ukraine, because they were solely reliant upon that source and they hadn't diversified. I would think that you guys diversify when you run your households. You don't have one source of anything, even down to grocery stores or gas stations or whatever. You would think that nations would do that as well. So I don't like to choose between either or if I can do it and. So, if that makes any sense.
It does.
Thank you for allowing me to do that,
You
to
bet.
share that.
Okay. All right. We mentioned last month that we would review Brooks' contract, and I think everybody got a copy of that or had an opportunity to look at that. Everything's basically the same except the amount of pay per hour, the rate of pay, let's say that, and which is an increase. So, you got anything to say about it, Brooke, other than it's the same, right?
It's exactly the same, except for that price in there. And again, I feel confident that the new year is going to bring some good things up.
Eric finally give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, Eric did.
I don't know who beat who, but I think Brooke and I was thinking of the same thing because we hadn't heard from Eric, and we both had sent him, hey, here's the contract, we'd like to really review it. He's the county attorney, and anyway, he responded, so anyway. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the contract? And is there any discussion about it? Any hiccups or anything you'd like to say about it? If not, do we have a motion to accept the proposed contract for 2026 for Brooke Reinl as a consultant to Redevelopment Commission? Do we have a motion to accept the
Yes.
contract as presented?
I move we accept the contract as presented.
I second.
In a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, none, 5-0.
Me.
Okay, we'll sign this out.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Brooke,
Greg.
we're glad to have you for next year.
Thanks, Brooke.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We've seen growth. We have seen growth in you this year, and even at the end of last year, and the opportunities you've taken to broaden your education on economic development, redevelopment. So,
it's a
anyway.
wide field, I'll say. Definitely got plenty I can keep busy with. So. Yeah, my report here, I don't know if anybody has any questions. What I've been focusing on since last month is really some of these, trying to figure out, my biggest interest is what can we do in the next couple of years that will fit well in Clay County to expand something, and whether that be one of our industrial park spaces, or whether that be some new work and development at a certain location. I've really worked to try to look at what can be a good community project that we could all get around that would, really lift economic development and just some enthusiasm here in the county with what we have. So these are just some. I was asked to go to Chicago. I think I mentioned that last month. So I was able to spend a couple of days there with site selectors. That was super interesting. I was happy to get to meet all of them. They all had different perspectives on what they thought, was important. And I just asked questions around Clay County mostly. What do you see that would be good for us? And it was good to pick their brains a little bit. So this report just shows mostly a scope of industry trends, and then I just took from there a couple of things that I've been working towards learning more about. As far as the other work I've been doing, I've been working with the Economic Development Council, and I've been going to see some different learning sites, because one of the things I think that we could do, if there's enough energy around it, is to build some sort of a workforce training space in Clay County. I know there's one at Ivy Tech, and I think that one's great for those who can get there and do it, but I'm just trying to learn a lot more about what these other places are doing. So I got to visit Vincennes and Jasper. It was a pretty fascinating thing, and I learned some good things especially about the nursing program that they have there. They had a pretty interesting space where they had these mannequins that were robotic. And the students were in there working, and it was pretty interesting because a mother could be giving birth. This is basically a mannequin robot. And so they have to go over there and go through the process of delivering the baby, checking the baby. They had some small baby ones, but they had patients all around that they were breathing. And it was pretty interesting and fascinating to see what a student could learn from a mannequin to take a pulse, to use the stethoscope. So I just thought, well, that's maybe not something Clay County could do, but I know we have a lot of our students going through Northview are in the nursing field, in the healthcare, the biosciences field. So what if we, got together and partnered with some people to think through, is there anything we could do to expand what we're giving and offering to students in Clay County? That was just an example. So I'm doing research for that reason. What can we do here that would be creative, that we could get the funding for, that would increase our confidence in our workforce and help, what's going on here. So I know that would have to be a conversation probably with the schools, but I'm just sharing with you why I'm going on these trips to try to learn these things. And so I've still got to get up to Plainfield. They have a place called Made at Plainfield that I want to see. But those are good. And so I've been spending a little bit of drive time and going and seeing a couple of other ideas out there that people are doing that I think are something that might be feasible for Clay County. So I've been focusing there. Here at the end of the month, though, I'm focusing back on just trying to reconnect with our manufacturers, our builders. I've got several meetings set up the next few weeks with those folks to talk about where they're headed, what they're looking at, if there's anything that we can do to think about helping them with any ideas. So that's where I'm focusing over the next few weeks. I don't know if that makes sense. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm confusing tonight.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If one of our goals is to get people to the Employee Resource Center,
yeah,
was that what you would call it? And we know one exists at Ivy Tech, and in the meantime of coming up with the funding to build our own, knowing one exists 30 minutes away, is there any way we could look at funding for transportation? I know that when dual credits became available in the summertime for students at Ivy Tech, for the school corporation, I encouraged them to find a way to get the kids there.
Yeah.
Because parents might not be able to take every kid there, and that's what we did. And they were free. They were free. That was the whole emphasis, is they were free. So we loaded them up on school buses. The parents would drop them off at certain places. We'd go and pick them up. And then we took them there and actually ran a morning run, and then we came back and ran an afternoon run. So I guess what I'm thinking of is you're talking about adults and people who are right now in the workforce or want to be in the workforce or want to switch jobs within the workforce. I wonder if there's a way we could actually solicit something that would be more affordable, and that would be a bus. Can we get someone to donate us a bus? And then funding to run that bus to Ivy Tech for that. And then just advertise to the people, the workers, the employees, whatnot, when we're going, what we're going to do when we're there, how long we're going to be there, and tell them what they'll need and what they'll be learning, whether they need their lunch or whatever. But that would be a real quick fix gap, in my opinion, between funding for a complete center. And the other thing I would say is I don't want to sound like I've been reading too much sci-fi, but you're all seeing in the news how the push in manufacturing is towards robotics. And right now you have factories in China that are completely run by robots. There's no lights because they don't need lights because nobody sees. They all have their programming to tell them what they need to do in what space and how often. And these factories go 24/7. There's no break, there's no lunch, there's no rest, there's no need. I know that in the state of Illinois, you have nurse robots that have been tried out for the last few years. And so when you're a patient in the hospital, you have a little robot that looks like something from the Jetsons, roll into your room, and they already know who you are. They already know they can distribute medicine. They can take your blood pressure. They can do these things. That's been going for a couple of years now. So I guess my question is how long will it take? Because I know, and we know that like some of our local manufacturers have been pushing towards robotics because remember they wanted some of the students more involved with putting together the equipment that they had gotten that was robotic but my point is this initiative, and it kind of goes back to the summit because that's the end goal also with AI, is to replace workers with robots in lots of different fields. So we have, I don't know how long, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or the initiative could completely change. But we have X amount of time before this is going to affect our country more so, beyond the big GM and Ford plants in the large cities and so forth, but also eventually come down to Clay County. So I don't know how to train the workers of today. We still have to train them for what we have today. But if we look at getting funding to build a training center, will that be obsolete in 30 years? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just kind of checking out what people are doing and finding out some of the things that might be good to fit here that.
What are they saying? Are they saying anything about robotics?
They had a cool couple of labs for robots and cobots, and so their middle schoolers come in and work with the cobots, but not the robots, of course. So yeah, they're doing some work there, some teaching, and then they have the hands-on practical around the room. But the way they set it up is pretty nice. But they didn't talk about longevity of these programs. What they do there is they always go to their local workforce every year and get a report on where they're headed, what they want to see. So they try to pivot based on the changing needs. And so they're able to get the funding to do that somehow. And so I'm not sure how that would work, but I would think it would have to be something where you could be kind of fluid on the trainings and stuff. And maybe it's not the right decision. I was just sharing, checking some things out to see, ask some questions, so.
I mean, you've even seen in the news where Amazon is now using drones to deliver packages.
Right, that's right.
So.
Yeah. But it's, I've got one more stop I'm gonna make just to do a little bit more research before I bring it, back and talk to some different ones about it. But it was pretty cool. And then just industry trends there from the Chicago trip. I think you can read those yourself there. If you have any questions about any of those that I learned about. Creativity with incentives. I put a little section there on that. The site selectors were talking about how different states are trying to get creative with their incentives to draw the people that they want. So there's a few of those that are listed there. The things that I hadn't thought about, besides abatements, a workforce training facility sometimes is an incentive to bring people in. Also, the use of blighted properties to allow companies to have some of those properties to do something with them as part of an incentive to bring them in, which I never had thought about that, but some are doing that with their creativity. And then there's some incentives to move from different states. My interest, though, is building Clay County as much as possible in the process. So while we want to, I'm sure we'd take any resident that wants to move here. I still want to focus a little bit on building what we have here and who we have here. I'm really interested in that from my perspective. So I think that's about it. We did get on the books for next spring with a skilled trade showcase that's coming in. Built to Succeed is going to help us with that at the fairgrounds. That's going to be a big deal. It's going to draw a bunch of students from a lot of places to come in and do some hands-on skills with our skilled trades. They're going to set up some hands-on things for the students to do. We'll invite county area schools. Of course, Clay County is going to be, they're the ones that helped us select the date so that they could attend. And that's going to be pretty awesome and pretty big. So when that does come, I'd love for any of you that could come and be part of that to come and see that. That'll be a pretty huge day for us here in Clay County, I think. So with that, I'll stop talking.
Good. Good report. Before we go to claim, anybody, Lou,
Yes, sir.
other than wanting to take Jan out behind the woodshed, you got anything?
Well, I'm taking a note of myself to check whether or not we could spend 15%. Well, there's two different things. You can spend money, TIF money, with a company that has a job training program to support that program. You can also spend up to 15% of your money for educational programs. And it doesn't have to be a school corporation program. It can be anybody that's in the business of education. So I want to look at it. Every time I think about that statute, I have to look at it. It's conceivable that you could fund a program with Ivy Tech that would pay student tuition to attend Ivy Tech. Now, it might not directly pay transportation costs, but if they don't have to pay tuition, they have money to pay transportation costs. Rather than trying to develop your own program, I'll have to look at that. But my initial thought is you could probably do something like that. You'd have to carefully structure it to make sure that it's for the benefit of Lake County people on the land. They'd have to account to you and all of that. But I would think Ivy Tech would be receptive to something like that. I don't know.
I believe they would.
And if we would be able to set some criteria, and maybe it could be you've been an employee in this industry for X amount of years and your evals are within this range, and then maybe ask the manufacturers to submit names like
Yeah, I mean, there should be some sort of selection process. I don't know.
because you want the people who are selected to be the ones who would finish that program and benefit from that program and plan on bringing those skills back into this community. I like that.
It's probably not, you're probably not looking at a full ride scholarship. You pay for a couple of technical classes. You'd have to identify maybe some specific coursework that would qualify.
Even the soft skills, and you would have, I think, excitement from some of the people that are out there now employed over the idea of having an opportunity to go to Ivy Tech, an opportunity to improve their skills, to stand out, a sense of achievement, acquiring something that's real. It would be a morale booster, and I think it would even affect the workplace, the factories, the manufacturers, the people around. Boy, that'd be great if that worked out.
Yeah, and some of the manufacturers do partner with Ivy Tech, but I would think anything we could do to help them would just strengthen our relationship and our support. I guess I think that would be a great thing. So I'll try to get that info from you, or if you can send me to where the rules are, I can think into that and talk to some of the manufacturers about that.
Well, there aren't really any specific rules. I mean, the rule is you can spend 15% of money for educational sorts of programs, but I'll have to look at
Okay.
I
Seems like years ago, we talked about that a little bit.
Well, I think when we talked about it before, it was more providing support to the school corporation for vocational educational schools programs, and there was actually some talk with the school corporation about working on setting those programs up, and then it just kind of died.
I think so.
wasn't that about 2 years ago with Jim Coffenberry, or are you talking about further back than that?
Well, yeah, Jim was on board, but it's been quite a while.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's say, let's throw out 8 years, like 6 years.
It'd be when I was working for the Bureau of Prisons in Education, one of the things I did spearhead, and we got it, we had it running for a while, was an associate's degree program. We'd hooked up with Indiana DOC, the feds did, and ISU at the time. Now that program's closed at ISU, it's gone to Ivy Tech. But when I established that program, and you had two different degrees to choose from, associate's degree, but I, especially when it came, and when I'm talking about the free world and employees of manufacturing, I'm not comparing them to inmates. I'm just using this as the basis of my experience. I had to come up with the criteria of who was the good bet, who was most likely going to take it seriously, succeed, had the ability, had the self-discipline, had the, dreams go along with it. I myself, I am a school board member, and I will always advocate for our students. However, in this case, I would think that this program, if you guys do it, would be most beneficial towards the people who are right now employed in manufacturing or the area. Because that alone could start a little fire in their bellies to come back and start their own businesses. That's the group I would think that we would benefit, that they would benefit the most from. And because as an adult, how many support systems do you really have? Do you remember your high school support system? Everybody was rooting for you. Everybody. The school staff, your community they were showing up to your events, your parents, your grandparents. When you get out to be an adult, that rooting quiets down. And maybe sometimes it's coming from the workplace. Maybe it's coming from your church or your community groups, your family. But I think when we get tossed out on our own, and that's just part of growing up, we might benefit more from resources like this. It'd be great if we could target them, is all I'm saying. And I've already spoken too much, so I'll quiet down. But that, to me, that would benefit the community, and it would stir some excitement and some dream making among the people that are there about, hey, I've always wanted to start my own business. Or maybe they're emboldened to say, hey, I've got an idea now that I can suggest to improve this on the manufacturing line or this in our business. And I don't know, you see where it could lead you. Exciting.
Interesting. Okay, anything else before we go to claims? Thanks, Luke. Claims for this month, 2,000 for, $2,100 for Brooks Monthly Contract Consulting. We had a $500 claim for our bonds for all us five that are board members, and $11,355 from Baker Tilly, and which is a total of $13,955. And we prepared the claims and asked for a motion to accept claims as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion about the claims? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, saying none. Okay, 5-0. All right, is there anything else? If not, next meeting, December 17th, 2025. Right here. Years flying by. All right. Thanks everybody for attending, and we got a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
And a second by Jan, and motion carries 5-0, right? Amen. Thanks for all for attending.